So yeah, so I changed the setup. I've got a different microphone here, and I also put up foam on the wall that hopefully will get rid of some of the background noise that I I was fiddling around with the files just to one of the last recordings to see how they sounded, and I realized that I sound pretty bad. So I decided I needed to work on that a little bit. I actually not only could I hear the hiss, which I know you've told me about, I could actually hear some bleed through on my headphones. I could hear you echoing back at myself.
Yeah, I have heard that a couple of times, but not all the time. It kind of seems to come and go. I don't know whether it's when I'm talking too loud or something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I've tried to fix that up. I don't know.
But yeah, that's a lot of foam you've got there.
Yeah, you know what? It doesn't stay up. It drives me crazy. I've got to find a better way to stick it to the wall. It's I was using double-sided carpet tape, like if you have a slippery rug in your house, and so it tends to fall down overnight. Which, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's already starting to peel. It'll probably fall on me while we're talking, but I'll find a better way to do that part of it.
Well, good. As long as we're recording for the entertainment value, if it does fall on you.
Yeah. Well, anybody looking to buy foam, you can get it fairly inexpensively on Amazon. You can, of course, like you can with anything, you can spend a ton of money on fancy professional foam. I got like the cheapskate foam, which is about an inch deep, and I think costs like $15 for 12 1 foot by 1 foot squares. So I got 2 packs, one for each wall, and so I've got about 24 square feet covered with black foam. I did it while my wife was out of town, as you do with such things, and just casually mentioned it to her when she came home. And fortunately, she doesn't come down here much, so she doesn't really care.
Even better. So I noticed you still got you got your Big Ben and it's one of the towers in Chicago, the Lego sets.
Yeah, that's the John Hancock building. Not the biggest by far, but it's one of the landmark buildings in the city. So yeah, I've got those there. Those are there because obviously where we live.
Well, you'll be pleased with what's coming out next year. Lego are doing a Chicago skyline.
Oh, they are really. Our Lego store here has a skyline that they did as part of the display for the store itself when you walk into it, and it's really cool because it's one of those that's absolutely enormous.
Yeah, I think I've seen a photo of that. But yeah, the skyline they're doing, they've done a series of them this year. They did New York, Berlin, and somewhere else, I think. And it's kind of like the architecture style, like quite a small little set. But yeah, there's a Chicago one coming out next year, so I'll let you know when that's out.
Yeah, some of the architecture sets though are getting a little more ambitious. I mean, you got Big Ben, right? That's a bigger set.
Yeah, the huge Big Ben. I just ordered that this week actually, along with the Disney Castle.
Yeah, is that Big Ben part of the architecture series, or is it just kind of like a separate thing?
No, I think they call it Creator because it's like this advanced. Right. It's supposed to be for like older teenagers and adults because they're kind of a bit more detailed. But yeah, I mean they're kind of based on the same way they do the smaller architecture sets.
Right. I mean, I actually was, for whatever reason, I was looking at the architecture sets last night, and I looked at, and it did seem that some of them were getting a little more elaborate because I saw, for instance, the Trevi Fountain in Rome, and that's like a 400 or 500 piece set. It's like a $40 set. It's kind of in between.
Yeah, I've actually got that upstairs. I haven't built it yet.
It looks really nice.
That's a really nice set. So, should we get on to what is basically our only topic or our main topic today?
Yeah, we should, because I've been spreading a rumor about you that I drove you away from iOS by sending you too many stickers, and I think a lot of people believed it because it is kind of plausible. If you've been on the receiving end of any of my iMessages in the last month or so, it is plausible.
Yeah, so it's not quite that bad. And I realised that like the last episode I was talking about, getting the AirPods and kind of I was fine with my iPhone.
Yeah, then... you flipped pretty quick. I noticed that too.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that just something tipped me in iOS 10. There's a few different. I kind of listed them in one of my blog posts. Some of the things that annoy me about it. Control center, notifications, things like that. And yeah, so I bought a OnePlus 3.
Yeah. So would you say it was more the things about iOS that annoy you, or more that you're excited about the hardware? Because that Android hardware does look pretty good, and I know that when you saw it announced, you were pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly um, it's mostly the software, really. Because in terms of the hardware, I mean, the OnePlus is, I think, maybe 4 or 5 months old now. I mean, it's really good spec. It's got like 6 gig of RAM, which is insane. But no, to be honest, it was mostly the iOS 10. The actual software itself was just bugging me way too much for the very small amount of things that I actually do on my phone.
Uh huh.
And one of the guys at work had ordered a OnePlus 3, and he accidentally ordered two of them. So I kind of had easy access to just buy one without having to wait for shipping or anything like that. So it was a fairly easy choice.
Oh, okay. So they were just those are being sold unlocked then, right? Not tied to any contract.
Sold unlocked. Yeah,
I guess that's typical in the UK though, right?
Yeah, it's pretty standard. And OnePlus is slightly different because they don't. I think other than O2 in the UK, they don't have any deals with carriers. You basically just buy it from them, or you don't buy it at all.
Right. But I assume they still work with other carriers since they're all pretty much on the same network or, wavelength, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the UK and Europe, they'll work on any carrier. I don't know about Verizon because I know Verizon's a little bit strange in the US, but yeah, it will work on most carriers.
Yeah, everything here is a little strange. I mean, we had at one point, I think, 3 or 4 different bandwidths that you had to deal with, so it made switching really hard, and then it became a way for the carriers to stop people from switching, so they resisted standardizing around any particular part of the spectrum, which kind of sucked. But I think we got to break down what was annoying you about iOS 10 before we go into your new phone. What you mentioned Control Center and notifications in particular. What about those things?
Yeah, so Control Center, I mean, this sounds like such a kind of petty minor thing. But see, in iOS 10, it's now 2 kind of panels that you swipe between.
Yeah, it can be 3 too if you have HomeKit going.
Oh, excellent.
It really, once you install something from HomeKit, you get a third that's on the far right.
Yeah, that's not ideal. So yeah, the problem is that the 2 of the main things that I do from Control Center, or did, was the torch and playing and pausing music.
Right.
And because those are on each one of those is on the different pane, it felt like whenever I swiped it up, it was always on the wrong screen. And like I say, I know that this is a small minor thing, but because that I don't use my phone for a lot, it really frustrated me.
Yeah. Well, I can see if you don't use your phone a lot, especially that would be the experience, because I mean, I do know, for instance, if you're listening to music and you go back into the Control Center, it'll go back to the music pane. Like if you were last in the music pane and you're playing music, it'll go back to music. It doesn't always default back to the first pane, which is the one with the utilities and stuff. But if you're not using it to start with, that's where it'll be.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the problem. Like because it doesn't reset, I feel like if it did always reset to the first panel, that would actually have made it easier, because I would have always known what was going to happen. But I didn't always know where it was going to be. As I say, I mean, that's a small thing, but it's kind of just one of many small things that was bugging me.
Well, I think it's one of those things where they ought to be customizable. Like if you use music the most, you ought to be able to make that the first pane.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I very rarely would use, or I never use AirDrop, and yet that's kind of there all the time. Like you've got all the other buttons there and things like that. So yeah, that was one of the things that was bugging me. Another one that bugged me, you know the thing where you plug your headphones in and it should kind of show you. It's supposed to contextually know that, oh, you've plugged your headphones in, you probably want Overcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of shows it, the little icon in the bottom left of the lock screen. That just stopped working for me. I don't know whether they kind of reset that intelligence in iOS 10 on the update or something, but that just wouldn't work for me anymore.
Yeah, it works for me, but I don't use it really.
Yeah, so the problem is, because I don't I don't listen to a lot of music on my phone. It's mostly just podcasts. But obviously,
Right.
music is considered like the default
Right.
on iOS. So if I press play and everything's in the back, everything's been quit from the background, it will automatically go to music.
Yeah, I get that. What about notifications? What was driving you nuts about those?
Yeah, so in iOS 9, for example, if I got a mail notification, I could just swipe to the right and I'll swipe to the left and archive it. If you don't have 3D touch, you have to now swipe to the left, click view, which then shows up the actions, and then you can archive or reply and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's this kind of a general feeling I had about it. If you don't have a 3D touch device, and I appreciate it's a 2-year-old phone, or 2 years old now. But if you don't have 3D touch, like there's a lot of stuff that's just missing. Like clearing all notifications from the lock screen, just isn't there.
Right. Now, there are some things that have been implemented with long presses and stuff, but I get what you're saying, and I think it's long term. Apple's got to bring 3D touch to the iPad too, because this becomes a problem for iPad users as well, because they don't have 3D touch, just like your phone doesn't.
Yeah, actually, I haven't even considered the fact that brand new iPads don't have access to 3D touch either. So I feel a little bit more justified moaning about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, it's mostly those things, because that's pretty much what I do on my phone. Like I look at notifications, I play podcasts. That's pretty much it. It's not too much, but the things, because of the way these things now work in iOS 10, it was just so frustrating to use this stuff for me.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Did you sell your Apple Watch yet? I know you were trying to.
Oh, no, not yet. Hard.
This is your opportunity for a PSA, a public service announcement. If you live in the UK and wanted a first-generation Apple Watch, get in touch with Rob.
Yes, please.
He's trying to sell it.
Please,
he'll give you a good deal, I think.
I
guarantee that he'll give you a good deal.
Yeah, use the offer code RUMINATE for 10% off.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, you obviously have no use at all for an Apple Watch now. I mean, because it really is it's basically useless without a phone.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be used with Android at all. And I think I tweeted this, but honestly, the only thing that I miss, and it sounds ridiculous, the only thing I miss is being able to see the time. So I intend to buy like an actual watch that just tells the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get used to it. It's true. I mean, I do the same thing. The other thing that for me is the big seller is the notifications more than anything else, especially when I'm like walking to and from the train, which I don't do anymore because my knee is in a brace. But eventually, I'll be walking like a normal person again and have more use for my watch.
Yeah, definitely. So, should we talk about the things I do like about Android? Because I feel like I've spent quite a lot of time moaning about iOS 10.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's good for context just because it's useful to kind of understand what it is, what are the pain points, because I don't know, people don't, I would put it, from the outside, I would look at it and say, you had pain points with iOS. You didn't have a lot of switching costs because you don't have an iPad. You do have a watch, but you're not super deep in on iOS. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think I said this in the blog post, but I don't do quote unquote real work on iOS, so I'm not really relying on anything with my phone.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So when you saw the new phone, what was it about this one in particular, I guess, that attracted you?
Yeah, so I'd been having a look around, and I did, before I bought it, I waited for the Google Pixel announcement,
right?
Because I've always been like the Nexus devices that they released last year are really nice. A couple of the guys I work with have got those, and they're really nice devices, and they were pretty affordable, and like the price was good, especially compared to an iPhone. Like they were maybe 2/3 of the price or something like that. They're really powerful devices. They're stock Android. This is the experience that Google wants you to have. But then the Pixel came out, and it's I feel like they're aiming much more towards the iPhone market, where it's this premium device. I'm not sure about the US, but certainly in the UK, the prices are identical between the Pixel and the iPhone.
Yeah, they are here too.
Yeah, so but I'd looked at some reviews. I looked at a load of different articles and MKBHD reviews, because he reviews a lot of Android phones. And the OnePlus 3 is the one that kind of kept coming up all the time. It's like half the price of an iPhone, but it's basically as powerful as any other top end Android phone.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said,
I was going to say, where did this phone come from? I mean, it seems like it kind of came out of nowhere to me. But then again, I don't follow Android super closely.
Yeah, so it's been around. I think it's a couple of years now, maybe 3 years. It's a Chinese manufacturer. OnePlus is the company that makes it. And they had the OnePlus One, and then the 2, and then the X. And they were all reasonably well received, but there were certainly problems with them from everything I've read. But they kind of run pretty close to stock Android. They've got some kind of their own custom stuff over the top, but for the most part, they're pretty much like the pure Android experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then the OnePlus 3, as I say, came out. I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, maybe a little bit less, maybe July or something. And as I say, it's got 6 gig of RAM. It's got some kind of Snapdragon processor. It's hard for an iPhone user because we don't know or really care about the processor because it's not really comparable anywhere else.
That's true.
So it's kind of weird talking about specs of a phone because I haven't done that for 5 or 6 years. But it's a powerful phone.
And it's got very fast charging too, I think, which is nice.
Yeah, the fast charging. I mean, I can get from 20% to 100 in probably 45 minutes, maybe just under an hour. The first 20 minutes to half an hour will take you up to like 60 or 70%.
Yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, as I say, because I'd looked around and the Pixels are a bit more expensive, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like Android, so I didn't want to spend a huge amount at first. And I had quick access to it because Louis at work had 2 of them. So yeah, I just kind of made the jump.
Yeah, that's cool. There's something about the Pixel to me that it's just not very exciting. I think maybe it's because it is so close to an iPhone, both in looks and I guess price and everything. It felt kind of uninspired when they revealed it.
Yeah, it definitely didn't. It definitely wasn't as exciting as I was hoping it was going to be, because I was more than willing to spend the money if I was genuinely excited about it, but I couldn't. Certainly for me, I couldn't really see many features that were worth it to spend that extra money.
Yeah, it's not that it's a bad phone. I mean, it's definitely comparable, I guess, to the iPhone, and it has some areas where it can brag that it's potentially a little better than an iPhone 7. But it's those differences seem to me to be very small and around the margins more than anything else. I actually watched the first half of the Pixel event as I was waiting to go to have my knee surgery, and then I finished it up when I came back and I was on drugs. So don't believe anything I say.
So yeah, I've attached a couple of screenshots of my 2 home screens.
So
if you take a look at those, and you can kind of see that for the most part it's basically the same as what I was using before. You've got Twitter and Reddit and Telegram, Mail, Messages, Chrome, all of my various kind of shopping, Amazon, eBay, that kind of stuff. The only real difference between it is I've got 2 widgets. I've got the Pocket Cast widget on my first home screen, and then I've got the Spotify widget on the second screen for when I'm using that. But as I say, for the most part, it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, I know you were looking. There were a couple of things you had maybe a hard time finding something comparable to an iOS app for, but not very much, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few. Plot, which is a movies app that that we've spoke about before. There's no Android version for that, so as for right now, there's nothing I can really do about that. And deliveries, I couldn't initially. I couldn't find a replacement, but I found an app called Aftership, which is a deliveries tracking app, and that works perfectly for what I need.
And Blink, I see.
Yes, and Blink. But then
you're never gonna see that on Android. Sorry to tell you.
Oh,
I've got the inside scoop, and that's what I hear.
yeah. And I'm not sure that I'm going to be searching for too many iOS apps at that now I'm on Android either.
Oh yeah, you know that I saw one of the ones you couldn't find too was iShows, right?
Yeah, I still haven't really found anything good for that.
Because you know what, like iOS is crawling with these apps because you know that what is it? Tracked, TRAKT, which is
Sure.
that web service for tracking television shows. It's got a really good API, and so there are a ton of different apps that are. A lot of them are very much like iShows. I was just looking to see if TV Time. I know TV Time's one that Federico's been using and really likes, and I don't know if they have an Android version or not. There's also Couchy, which is developed by a guy in Australia, but I don't think that one's on Android.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I did have a look around, and there are definitely some there. But I mean, we're only kind of a month into the US TV season, so I'm not in a huge rush to sort it out. Because I like to kind of keep track of what is out, but I generally don't start watching stuff until I've got at least like 5 or 6 episodes.
Right.
So I've probably still got another couple of weeks before I need to worry about that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the reason I would be surprised if there wasn't anything is just because with the Tracked API, you end up with a bunch of different iOS apps that all look roughly the same and do roughly the same thing. So I would think that since it's a web API, that there would be at least some options on Android somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely. As I say, I have had a search, and there are at least 4 or 5 that come up that are recognizable as TV apps. They look exactly the same as the kind of the iOS ones. I mean that's something that I've noticed. I mean, having used an iPhone for 6 years or something like that, or 7 years, and the kind of people that we follow and interact with on Twitter, there seems to be this undercurrent of like, there's not enough good apps on Android and things like that. The App Store is overflowing on Android with decent apps, just like there is on iOS. Yes,
right, and they're also
a lot of crap.
Right, that's what they have in common. They both are full of junk too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've downloaded a few apps, and I took one look at them, and I'm like, I'm not using this. Like, this is just terrible.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, that's the way it goes, though.
Yeah, it has made for kind of an interesting experiment because it's easy to kind of talk about the iOS App Store and say recommendations a problem or discovery is a problem, but it's hard to understand that when the kind of circles that we run in, we understand what the good apps are and who the decent developers are. On Android, I've got no idea. Beyond the obvious ones like Pocket Casts, because I know that that's a top quality app on iOS, so I know it's going to be good on Android. I really just have been kind of jumping into this blind and just browsing through the App Store. And Google is really good at suggesting apps that I might like.
Oh, that's good.
Not just based on apps I've downloaded. They're obviously using my browsing history or my emails or whatever else, and whether you think that's creepy or not, it's really useful.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, because you're jumping into it. You're right. You're jumping into it completely blind. I mean, you're plugged into basically a community of people who could tell you in 1 second what the best offline reader is, or the 2 or 3 best, and you'd know it immediately. But you're not getting that from the store like most people do. And so now you're left kind of with Google's recommendations. So it's good that they're useful.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other nice things they do with the Play Store on Android, there's a Google Rewards app.
Uh-huh.
And they send you a little notification. You answer a question or two, and they give you credit for the Play Store. So the other day, I got one, and it just said, "Do you have any children?" And I said no, and it gave me 50p credit for the Play Store.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know what they're doing with that data or what pool of money that's coming from, but why not?
You just say, "Yes, I have 50 children." and
Yeah.
mess with the stats. Yeah, I've been thinking more about Discovery lately too, because one of the things I've been doing with the new iMessage app store is trying to find the best sticker and iMessage apps. And the part that's really hard is finding those that are there, but there's no way to get to them, right? I mean, there's obviously there's categories, there's top lists. You can get everything that's popular. You can comb through all that really easily. But if somebody's got a new sticker pack on the iMessage store, and you don't know the name of it, and you don't know anything about it, there's just no way to find it.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's definitely a problem because we're what month in or so into iMessage sticker apps, and like you say, those top charts are pretty much going to be dominated with the same 50 apps for the next probably couple of months because they're already at the top, which then encourages more downloads, which means they stay towards the top.
Yeah. No, the way I find out about the new stuff and the obscure stuff is not through the charts. I mean, I do comb through the charts, but most of the rest of it I find either through Twitter or from developers contacting me directly.
Yeah, that's one of the problems actually. Or not problems, but I'm still kind of searching. I don't know what sites I should be following for Android stuff, or what developers or what people. Who is the John Voorhees of Android? Like, where is that guy? Like, do you know what I mean? Like these people who, I don't necessarily want to follow news sites, but
right,
people who will just be kind of tweeting about this stuff or maybe writing about it. I'm still kind of looking for the right sites and places to kind of find information because I'm still. Reading all this iOS news, and I'm thinking, I don't even care about this anymore. I don't even
right. What am I doing with my life? No, if we have any listeners who know of like the Mac stories of Android apps or something like that, definitely tweet us at Ruminate Podcast because we got to help Rob out here so he can get some decent apps.
I could stop reading about iOS.
Yeah, help him make a useful life.
Oh dear. So just a couple of other things I wanted to mention that I really liked. One is Pushbullet. You may have heard of this. There's an IFT integration and a couple of other things, but it's basically an app that it allows me to send text messages from my Mac, which is great because that's basically what I used to use iMessage for. But it also mirrors my notifications from my phone onto my Mac, so I don't, when I'm at work all day, I don't have to pick up my phone to see what my notifications were. I can just see it from the Pushbullet app.
You know what? I'm pretty sure there's something on iOS that'll do this too, and I'm blanking on what it's called. I tried it for a while, and I didn't want all my phone notifications on my computer because my phone was right there with me. But I did try it, and it's pretty handy depending on how you end up using your Mac.
Yeah, it's a kind of a good replacement for me because I don't have the watch anymore. Because if you've got the watch, you can kind of just quickly see those on the watch. But obviously, I don't have that anymore, so seeing it on the Mac is really useful. And this does kind of lead into a question that Richard asked on Twitter about an iMessage replacement. Certainly the first part of it anyway, because Pushbullet allows me to send text messages from my Mac. Like that was my primary use really for iMessage, was being able to send text messages from my Mac.
Right.
So, that at least partly goes some of the way towards replacing it.
Yeah. So what would you say? Are you using a lot of the stock apps, or have you replaced like email apps and things like that come with the phone?
Yeah. So part of kind of moving across to Android, and this was actually Johnny asked this on Twitter, like how easy was it to move contacts across? So I'll kind of answer that now, but previously I was using iCloud contacts and iCloud calendars.
Right.
So before I got the phone, I thought, well, what I really need to do is move this stuff into Google Calendar
Right.
and Google Contacts because, I don't know what the other alternatives are really for a calendar. It's kind of either iCloud or Google. Moving to the calendar is fine. You can just go into calendar on the Mac and just export each calendar, and then you can import them into Google Calendar. and it will pull in all those events and stuff, so you don't lose anything.
Yeah, they're all using standards that are pretty easily compatible between both platforms.
So, and then, contacts was basically the same, although it was kind of a bit weird to export them. You have to select all the contacts when you export. There's no just export option without selecting them all.
Oh, that is weird.
But again, I just go to Google Contacts on the web, import my contacts, and it's done. Switch over the internet accounts in the Mac preferences, and that was it really. It also prompted me to start using Google Inbox, which is Google's, almost like a Gmail version 2, kind of a better version of email. It extracts out like purchases and tracking numbers and things like that, and gives you kind of quick links to track them or see the receipts and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that drives me a little crazy about Google is they have multiple apps that do roughly the same thing, like multiple email apps.
Yeah.
I think Inbox is probably the better, and it's also the one, if I recall correctly, it's the one that's updated far more frequently than their Gmail app.
I think it's definitely their primary focus at this point. But I kind of just figured if I move into Android, I should get away from the kind of iOS way of thinking, and just let's go all in back. I used to use the Google services before, calendar and contacts and things like that. But I just figured I might as well go all in with that stuff and just really try out Android and see what it can offer me when I'm using these services.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's funny when you mention contacts. I think I almost never use my contacts, but I probably do just because the system is finding contacts for me in context when I need them. I don't actually go into the contacts app very often, but I guess it's good to have all that stuff there.
Yeah, definitely. We had a couple of other questions. So David asked if I'm going to buy a case. He was kind of asking if because the OnePlus is a little bit or quite a lot cheaper than the iPhone, like if I care as much about keeping it pristine.
Sure.
I'm not going to buy a case, but I have ordered some D-brand skins for the back, just to add a little bit of grip to it. So hopefully they'll be coming in the next few days. I mean, they've got a ship from the US, so they can take up to like 2 weeks. But yeah, the back of the phone is a little bit slippery, so I just figured I'll order some of these skins and see what those are like. And David also asked like if think like the phone will stay snappy over time, because he was saying his iPhone 6 is getting a bit slow. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what Android updates are like. If they slow the phone down, like iOS updates do, but I imagine that's the case because, the operating system just gets more advanced, but, we'll see.
Yeah, it's hard to know, and it's always hard to know, too, what is actually causing slowdowns. So, what is it, a perception thing? Is it actual software updates that's doing it? Is it that you've filled your phone up with photos and apps to the point where you've got 50 megabytes of data left, and it's doing all sorts of swapping back and forth to do the disk I/O and that sort of thing? It's always hard to know.
Yeah, definitely. And the last question we had, actually Richard had two questions. The first one, Richard said, best resource for learning Android. I don't know. I honestly have no idea, so I can't really answer that one. But he also asked if Android Pay works everywhere Apple Pay does. In terms of the UK, yes, because our contactless payment system it's just contactless. It's not concerned with whether it's Android Pay, Apple Pay, some stupid, proprietary bank thing.
Right.
It's just contactless. I don't know if that's the same in the US. I would imagine it is, knowing how contactless works. But then, I did kind of hear a lot of stories about the US with Apple Pay, and it's kind of a little bit different. So I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah, it's mostly true, I think, in the U.S. too. But you're right. I mean, as long as something has NFC, I think it's supposed to work, but it's not guaranteed to work. There might be some layer in there that causes problems. Oh,
So
well,
that was it for
pretty cool.
questions.
Well, that's good. What else? What else should we know about switching to Android? I'm very intrigued by it, and I probably should spend some time with Android. And the only thing that keeps me from doing it, just to kind of understand Android better, is I just don't feel like I spend enough on gadgets as it is without buying myself a phone that's not going to be my primary phone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a lot of things to like coming from iOS. As I say again, I think it's just because of the way I use my phone. Like, I don't use it a lot. But for example, like, I've got Dropbox installed, and as soon as I take a photo, it's already uploading to Dropbox. Like, I don't have to open the app or kind of hope that it's still in the background or anything like that. Like, it, within half a second of me taking a photo, it's already uploading, which is really nice. And kind of Google Photos does the same thing there. I can switch out default apps. Like, I didn't like the built-in SMS app, so I just replaced it with another one. And it's great. Like, it just works. One of the things I really don't like is the emoji are terrible.
Oh man, especially your favorite one. That's the worst emoji of all. The thinking man.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's just weird. I can't stand it. You found a way to replace them though, didn't you?
Kind of. I've replaced them in my SMS app.
Okay.
Because it has a plugin to replace them. But if I want to replace them system wide, I have to root my phone, which I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
But as I say, there's lots of little bits and pieces. It's kind of hard to remember everything.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, one of the other things I did like, after a couple of days, I was at home and it popped up and it said, "We think this is your home Wi-Fi network. Do you want to just keep your phone unlocked when you're on this network?" So when I'm at home, I don't have to put a passcode in or use my fingerprint.
Yeah, that is nice. I would like to have something like that on iOS.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think that's it. There's probably some stuff I've missed. I mean, if you already use Android, probably none of this is coming as a surprise. I'm sure all the Android users are just rolling their eyes and going, "Yes, Rob, all of this has been on Android for years."
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's new to a lot of people who are listening, so it's good to kind of go through. I got my iPhone 7 Plus since we last recorded. Or I guess maybe I had it when we last recorded. I guess I did, but I didn't really talk about it, did I? I don't even remember.
I don't think you had it, no. But I'd assume you're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I got the matte black, right? So, I haven't had since I haven't been up and about much. I have not had a lot of opportunities to deal with things like use the camera that much. But to the extent I have, it's really good. I like portrait mode. I'm on the beta of iOS 10, so I've enjoyed the portrait mode. It is not perfect, but if you compare it to another app, there are apps out there that will try to approximate what's going on with the portrait mode in iOS 10.2, but but doing it with one camera and doing it with phones that don't have support for that, and they do a far worse job. So I give Apple a lot of credit for the portrait mode. When it works really well. And I've reorganized my home pages. I'm trying to lead a more organized life because I have less time to do things now because I can't work on the train because I'm in a leg brace and there's no way to get comfortable to work on the train. And I'm going to be going to physical therapy 2 nights a week. So I have less time to do all the things that already take up all my time. So I've got to be more efficient. So I've both reorganized my phone, reorganized my email, task lists, calendar. I'm going all in and trying to become a responsible adult.
Good for you, John. Good for you.
I know. Isn't that exciting? It's really exciting. I literally sat on the couch yesterday all day and went through 1,100 emails, probably 200 tasks, and just kept going and going and going. All these little notes here and there and like the Notes app, and just tried to bring it all together and reduce the number of inboxes and organize everything a little better.
You really know how to party on a Saturday, John.
I do. I did post a picture of my end of the day pat on the back beer that I had. So
you did using portrait mode.
I did use portrait mode. I thought it looked pretty handsome in portrait mode.
It did. It looked very nice. So in the same vein of me just buying things at random and flip flopping, I bought some Bluetooth headphones.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot. You got the Jaybird X, right?
Yeah.
Is it the X2?
Yeah, I ordered the X2.
Yeah, that's the most recent one, I think.
Yeah, so I originally ordered some Soundpeats QY7s, which sound terrible. The name is awful. But these kept popping up in lists of, like best value Bluetooth headphones, or these are the decent ones if you don't want to spend too much money. And they were like, I think £20 on Amazon. And I thought I'd give them a go because there were so many reviews that said they were really good for the money. And I'm not overly concerned with audio quality. I ordered them, used them on my way home from work, and immediately packed them back up and returned them to Amazon because they were the worst headphones I've ever used.
Yeah, you know what you get when you buy cheap Bluetooth headphones, Rob? You get cheap Bluetooth headphones. I think it's more true than most products. I mean, that's not always the case with a lot of gadgets, but I think those low-end Bluetooth headphones usually are pretty awful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and normally I wouldn't do it, but there were so many sites that had these headphones in their list of headphones that you should get if you want Bluetooth headphones that I thought they can't possibly be that bad if they're in all these lists and reviews and stuff like that. But they were terrible and definitely do not ever buy them. So yeah, I got home, packed them up in the box, and I prime nowed a pair of Jaybird X2s and had those within 2 hours.
Oh, that's nice. It sounds like Prime Now is getting really good in the UK, because I was just listening to Mike Hurley talk about how he was having trouble getting some of his PSVR components, so like the hand controllers, from regular Amazon, but he was able to get them from Prime Now within a couple of hours.
Yeah, I mean, probably especially for Mike, because he's towards London.
Right.
Basically
he's in the big city. Yeah.
Exactly, because Prime Now is kind of based on whatever stuff they have at your particular nearest warehouse.
Right.
Mine is about, I think it's 15 or 20 miles away from here. So yeah, but yeah, it's definitely getting better. There's still a few things that I've looked and I'm like, you really should have some of these because I would just give you my money right now. But yeah, so I got the Jaybird X2s. Mostly on your recommendation because you've used them in the past. And I mean, I use them, maybe probably 2 hours a day, an hour to work, an hour back. And I still haven't had to charge them. Like I charged them once when I first got them, and they've done like 7 or 8 hours this week already.
How do you like those little wingy things that you jam into your ear? Those are the only thing that I found to be a little fiddly sometimes with those headphones. Yeah,
I went through all 3 different sizes and different kind of different directions on the earbuds to try and work out the most comfy place for them. And I finally got them to a point where I actually do quite like them. But I had to move them round a bit more than, almost like kind of 90 degrees more than what they show in the manual to really get them comfy for what I wanted. But yeah, I really like them. As I say, the battery life, I mean, the fact that I haven't had to charge them all week is great.
Right. Yeah, my Bluetooth headphones are getting to the point where the battery's starting to go. So they really only last 2 to 3 days now. And I probably use mine about the same amount of time you do a day, roughly. So, but I'm just holding out because I'm gonna get the AirPods. I've been a little intrigued by the Beats, the Solo 3s, just listening to a couple of different people who have been using them because they've got something like some crazy with the W1. They've got 40 hours of use or something like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I'm still kind of listening out for those. I mean, of course, without the W1, the battery life will probably be worse. But and as I say, right now, I mean, the Jaybirds are perfect for what I want, especially if I can get them to last all week, and I don't have to worry about charging them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with the Solo 3s is they're for a whole different kind of listening because they're over the ear, right? They're kind of big. They're not something you necessarily would, use riding the subway every day, I would think. I mean, not some people would, but I probably wouldn't. And I just got some decent headphones over the summer, so they're corded, but I probably won't do anything with Solo 3s just because they're kind of expensive too.
Yeah, definitely. I have got the headphones I'm using right now. I used to use those when I was going to and from work. But obviously, this is England and it rains all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, these headphones are not particularly cheap either. And I'm like, oh, if it's raining, I really don't want to. So if it was raining, I'd always just switch to the Apple EarPods.
Yep.
Which actually I was using with my OnePlus, but the volume controls don't work on the wire.
Yeah, they tend to break pretty easily.
Well, no, they were working on my iPhone, but they wouldn't work on the OnePlus because apparently there's an Apple standard for the volume controls, and then there's an Android standard for wired volume controls.
Yeah, it's like an extra pin that they put on the 3.5 jack. There's like an extra, those rings that are around the edge. That one of those is for volume.
Right, I see. So yeah, that was kind of what prompted me because I didn't have volume control. So I thought, do you know what? If Bluetooth is a proper standard, that will definitely work. So I got those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, so I also bought something else since we last spoke.
What? You've been going crazy. I've been on the couch and I haven't spent any money for like 3 weeks. So you're spending it for me.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned that I'd ordered it, but I've now got the Amazon Echo.
Oh, right. Yeah. How do you like it so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not using it as much as I thought I would for the smart stuff, really.
Yeah.
But it is really nice to, I walk in the house, I've got my headphones on, and I just say, Alexa, connect to my phone, and it connects, and then it continues playing on the Echo. And, setting timers while I'm cooking is great, and, I can say how long's left on my timer. I can ask it to play playlists on Spotify. They released Todoist integration this week. So it will kind of sync between your Alexa shopping list and Todoist.
Oh, yes, I've heard all about it.
Yeah, I think you wrote about it, did you not? Or was that?
I did not. Federico did, yes.
Sure.
Of course he did. No, I don't have Alexa, but he does, so he was experimenting with it earlier in the week.
Yeah, so that's quite nice as well, because I can just say, add eggs to my shopping list, and it adds it to the Alexa shopping list, and then that syncs almost straight away to Todoist as well, which is nice. If I'm honest, I'm not sure I'm using it to its full potential, but I got it at a pretty good price because Amazon were doing that deal for Prime members,
right,
on the pre-order. The actual speaker itself is much better than the one it's replaced. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what you're describing, at least when you walk in the house and you say, connect to my phone, it's a little bit like continuity on the Mac and iOS, but I'll take this as a moment to complain about the fact that when I walk in listening to something on my phone, there's no way for me to continue listening to it in iTunes, which I think is just criminal at this point. I mean, there's so many things that have been added to continuity between the Mac and iOS that are nice, but maybe not as much high utility as iTunes. It's probably because iTunes is such kind of a clunker old app at this point, but it would be really nice to be able to walk in and just have music start playing on my Mac. Yeah,
this was something that I tweeted about because obviously I started using Spotify, I guess 3 weeks ago when we last recorded. Spotify's handoff, continuity equivalent where you can just see all of your connected Spotify devices, anything that's on the network. And just be able to say carry on playing there is always works. It works perfectly. I mean, and that is literally exactly what you're describing. You want to walk in and just press a button and it carries on playing on the Mac or Apple TV or whatever. But it just doesn't exist in the Apple ecosystem, unfortunately.
Yep. Which is, I wonder, it's one of those things too where I wonder where you get to the point where it's such a blatant and obvious hole that you wonder if that means that Apple's working on something that we'll find out about maybe in late October or something.
Yeah, maybe. I'd like to think so, because it's kind of a bit sad that a third-party app is doing continuity better than you can.
Right. Well, and the hole that I'm thinking about is an Echo equivalent from Apple, which it just seems to me that there ought to be a Siri speaker, but you know it's not something you hear any rumors about at this point. But it seems like something that's a natural. I mean, the Google Home looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, the Google Home looks really nice. I'm not sure that I trust Siri to even understand everything I'm saying as well as Alexa can.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it would necessarily be as good. I mean, I know everybody's got a lot of people have a lot of complaints about Siri. On the other hand, it's roughly the same. You know, it's the same sort of technology that Google and Amazon are using, and I don't really understand why we haven't seen that yet from Apple.
No, as you say, maybe we'll see it in the next few weeks, or if not, maybe next year. But who knows?
Indeed. So we got anything else for this show? I think that's pretty much about it, unless you bought something more that I didn't hear about.
No, I don't think I've bought anything else.
I haven't either. You know what I'm planning to buy today? I think I've been meaning to do it for about a week. I'm going to get about 40 feet of Cat 5e cabling.
Oh, John, you're so exciting.
Because you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into my laptop while I'm sitting here, and we're going to have an even better Skype connection.
Perfect.
So it's all. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you, Rob.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I've been working on my setup down here in the basement, so I sound a little better, and that's part of the process is hopefully making this Skype connection a little better too.
Excellent. So yeah, I think that's probably it for this week. The show notes will be ruminatepodcast.com/31. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at RMLewisUK. And John, where can people find you?
At John Voorhees, JohnVoorhees, and my writing's at MacStories.net.
Perfect. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
All right. See you later, Rob.
Bye.